Casey and welcome to kaciecuse. Today I'm going to be doing a little update video. I made a video in the summertime right before I went back to school about my nursing school career, my first semester. Actually my first year in nursing school. The program that I'm in is a 2-year program. So I just filmed a video about my first year and how that went, and of course I will leave it linked in the cards and down below so you can go check it out if you're just beginning nursing school and you want to kind of start from there. But in this video in particular I'm going to be talking about semester 3 out of 4, which is the semester that I just finished up in December. That being said, maybe in the title of this video I gave away a little smidgen of a detail about what happened this past semester, but I ended up having to retake a class, or I am going to have to retake a class that I took this semester because I ended up failing to meet the testing requirements for the course. So I started back up in my third of my 4 semesters of nursing school in August of 2016, and I started the semester off in the psych portion of the class, or of the semester rather. The third semester for the weekday program is split into a psych rotation and a 6-week psych class and a 6-week level 2 like med-surg class. So I started off in the psych class, which is nursing 210, and I thought it was going to be a breeze, especially because I worked as a patient safety representative in the hospital, which is a person that kind of sits and watches patients that are psych patients. So I was very familiar with the patient population. I wasn't nervous at all about like clinicals or anything, but the content was very difficult. I struggled back and forth. Like I would do really good on a test and then I'd bomb one. So the course is also mixed in. The way that they reformatted the curriculum the past couple of years is that during your psych rotation you have you learn a little bit about OB and like psych issues with pregnancy and stuff like that. So that was kind of mixed in, and of course they also threw in like complications. So we learned about, you know, pregnancy complications with psych stuff. So it was kind of not my cup of tea the way that they mix the 2 topics together. I would have much rather learned about complications with like family health in the spring. That's how it was formatted, so that's what I had to deal with. So the psych portion of the class definitely was my strong suit. We learned, again, some OB stuff, and they also threw in some med-surg stuff, so like more like critical care patients, spinal cord injuries, and we also learned about like MS and Parkinson's was another part of like the med-surg that they mixed in with psych. The reason they mixed a little med-surg in there was because they didn't want us to like lose our touch after going the whole summer without being in clinical and all of that. So that's kind of how the course was broken down. We had psych, OB, and like med-surg, like a little bit of med-surg mixed in there. So I struggled with the OB stuff without a doubt. It was difficult for me. Of course, while I was taking 210, we're also taking 211, which is like the lab portion of the classes, of the course work. So we were learning a bunch of different psych-related labs, like the mental status exam. We had like a schizophrenia lab. We had, what else did we have during that time? I don't specifically remember, but they were more like psych-related labs. So that was interesting. We like started out with like an intro to psych, and then it kind of broke off into the different disorders, and of course OB and all that was mixed in as well. And the way that clinical, of course we were still in clinical along with our classwork. We had 6 weeks in the psych course in 210, and 3 weeks were broken up into the med-surg portion and 3 weeks were broken up into the psych portion. I started off on a med-surg floor on the urology GI floor, so the GIGU floor. So I liked the floor. I got to do a lot of fun things. We also learned like IV push-in lab, so I was able to do that on clinical. Clinical is always the least stressful thing for me. And the CPGs, like the processing guides that we had to do along with clinical, were not as intense as they had been the year prior, like in the first year. So I had a good experience on the med-surg floor on 3-1 with my instructor. He was really great. So I was there for 2 weeks. And actually the first week that I was in the med-surg rotation was the week that we go back to labor and delivery. So I was on the OB floor 2 days. The first day I was alongside a woman that was going through labor. I didn't really get to do too much with her, but that was the first time that I got to do an IV push. I pushed the Nubane, which is the drug that they give, you know, mothers when they're close to delivery for pain. So I got to push that. And I had to do it like over the contractions, over 2 to 3 minutes, just pushing it in slowly. It went well, and I had a good first day on that OB floor. And then the second day, there was really not much going on. There weren't many patients on the unit, so they sent me over to the NICU, and I just got to hang out with the babies all day. I was like kind of assigned to a baby, and I just kind of sat with it all day. I held it, rocked it, fed it, changed its diaper, just kind of spent time with the one NICU patient. So that was enjoyable. I do like going to the NICU. Out of all of like the OB baby kind of stuff, the NICU is probably my favorite place to work in that realm, but definitely not something I'm interested in. So my 2 days on OB went really well. I didn't see too many complications. You know, I didn't learn really anything that I hadn't already learned in, you know, the spring semester during family health. So I was kind of just like meh with that. I passed clinical successfully, and the OB clinical instructor thought that I did a much better job than I had the following the spring semester. So I felt good about it, and then going into med-surg I felt fine as well. So during those weeks, 210 is broken down into 3 tests and 1 cumulative final. On my first test, I believe I got like a 74 or 76, somewhere in there, not too great. My second test, I got a 90 on, which I was floored to get. I was so proud of myself. I studied so hard for it. And then my third test is the one that I bombed, and the one that I feel the sickest about. I got a 66 on it, and it was the lowest grade that I ever got on any test ever in the history of nursing school. I never got a grade that low. Or I did in family health, but I had sworn to myself that I would never do that again. So I got another low grade. So going into the final, I was on shaky grounds. I needed to pass the class. So anyways, that's kind of where I was with tests. I was studying pretty much my butt off for them. They also threw some pharmacology at us during 210, so we had to learn all of the psych meds, all of them. So we had the pharmacology test that we had to get a 100 on, and then we had a med math exam, which we also had to get a 100 on. We couldn't, nothing, you know, we had to get that or we had to retake it. So it was like a satisfactory or unsatisfactory. We had a psych ATI exam, which is also kind of it's a program that many nursing schools, I believe, use to just kind of get you prepared for the NCLEX. So we had that, and I did pretty well on the psych one. I didn't have to remediate or anything, so that was kind of exciting. And the other thing, the element mixed into like the non-testing portion of the class, was a debate, and the topic that we had to research was a counterpoint to all people should be required to receive mental health treatment or something along those lines. So basically we had to argue that not everyone should get mental health treatment equally, which is like a hard counterpoint to counteract, and our instructors afterwards even pointed out that we had like the hardest counterpoint. So that was that. We didn't get to choose that. We were all assigned groups and assigned topics, so it wasn't like something that I could choose. And then we also had to write a paper about a psych nursing journal article research paper. So those were like the non-testing elements of the class, and then again there was 3 tests and 1 final that was cumulative. So going back to clinicals, I told you about how we had our med surge portion for 3 weeks, and then it was a psych portion for 3 weeks. So during the psych rotation, my first week on the psych side of the class, I was in my outside experience, and we got to choose our outside experience, the times that we wanted to go, and then the clinical days that we wanted to go on. So I chose to go to the hospital that I work at and go to school at. They have a psychiatric emergency department, so I went to that for one day, and I really did enjoy my experience up there. I learned a lot about it because I always have known what it's called, CPEP. I've always known what CPEP was, but I never really knew what went on up there. So it was really cool getting to explore it and walk around and see how they function on that floor and see the psych patients themselves. There was a lot of patients up there and a lot of, you know, just kind of in and out patients. So it was really, really interesting to see how that whole department worked. So I enjoyed my day up there, and a lot of the nursing staff knew me from me being a PSR, so it was just a good day overall. And then the other thing that I picked to do for my outside experience was go to an eating disorder clinic, and that was by far very interesting. Kind of didn't get to really participate in the setting, but we were kind of observing. Me and another girl got to go. Thank God I was with another classmate, otherwise it would have been so awkward. We got to watch them eat, which was by far the most awkward thing about the whole experience. We watched them do like an activity. We watched them do yoga, which was really strange again because we were just kind of sitting, and the people that worked there didn't really want us to participate. We got to sit in on like a rounding of each patient with the doctor, the nurse that was working there, and like the social worker and the people in the kitchen, and like the whole staff, like a whole staff meeting we got to go to and go through each and every patient and hear like their backstories. That was my favorite part of the day, was kind of getting a background on each of the patients. That was a good part of the day. And then we also got to go to like a group therapy session with the older clients at the clinic. We couldn't go into like the minors group therapy session. We were only with like the adult clients there, so we got to hear their stories and talk. We didn't really get to participate, but we got to hear them talk about the issues that they were dealing with. And eating disorders has always been something near and dear to my heart, not because I struggle really with one. I mean, I overeat and have a tendency to have those kind of issues, but my best friend Colleen really struggled with one for much of her life before I met her, and then up until a couple months or so into our friendship, she was still struggling with it. So she's always been a huge advocate for eating disorders, and she is like a social worker in an eating disorder clinic. So it kind of hit near and dear to my heart hearing these stories and kind of seeing what her job kind of is like. So that's why I picked that. But it was a good experience. Definitely would recommend going to something like that if you have the opportunity to do so. So those were my 2 outside experiences, and we had to do some kind of like clinical paperwork for that as well, and it wasn't too intense or invasive or anything like that. So I enjoyed that week. And then going into the next 2 weeks, I was on the psych floor at the hospital that I go to school at, and I actually really liked it. It was, again, another floor that I knew a lot about, that I had been with a lot of patients that eventually went to that floor, but I didn't know a lot about the floor itself and like how it worked. So there was like a day area, and then all the patients were either in like the lower security area or the higher secured area with security and more like locked doors. I got to kind of observe the first day and just like walk around and sit with the patients in the day area. I went to their group therapy, and then the second day I kind of got to pass meds with the charge nurse, and then I was there for 4 days. So I got to do a plethora of different things. And one day we had to do like a group therapy that we like as a group of clinical students got to like conduct. So that was a good time. I like enjoyed my psych experience. It was something that I definitely needed to see and that all nursing students really should go through. So I enjoyed it as an experience on clinical. Definitely felt very confident about the whole thing. So going back to the tests and everything, so going into the final, I was feeling pretty good. I studied like crazy for it. And I ended up failing the exam and ultimately failing the class. And also another thing that I want to point out is my cumulative average after I took the original final was 74.89. 0.89, which means I was 0.11 away from passing the course. In my nursing school, you have to have a 75 average in testing points specifically to pass the course successfully, and I had a 74.89. So it was very devastating. I was actually at work when I checked on my grade, and I ended up having to leave. I had like a breakdown in the bathroom on the floor that I was working on. My friend Sam was in the hospital visiting with her sister at the time, so she came and she got me out of the bathroom and brought me to my mother, and then my sister was still working, so she drove me home. It was just a mess. If you guys want to see the vlogs surrounding that time in my life, go check it out. It was in October, so I daily vlog if you want to see my life in real time. So I'm just throwing that in there in case you're curious. The next day, I went and talked to our dean, and he told me my options. Basically, the options he gave me were about reinstating into the program, and I was like, that can't be the only thing. There's got to be another way. I am this close to passing the class. You have to do something for me. So he really wasn't like finding an answer for me. So I asked him if I could file a grievance, and I started telling him about my anxiety. And I immediately that day after I had the meeting with him, I made an appointment with my primary care doctor, and I went in and talked to him, and he prescribed me Lexapro, like that, escitalopram. So I started taking that literally right away before I even had my grievance filed. So I wrote my letter, I submitted it to the dean, and he was going to get back to me about a date that I could have my grievance. In between the transition from 210 to 212, we had our commitment to nursing ceremony on that weekend in between. And the commitment to nursing is kind of like a congratulations, you made it more than halfway through nursing school and you are on to almost graduation, and it was kind of like a pre-graduation. Congratulations. It was this whole pinning ceremony. I vlogged it. I'll leave the vlog linked above so you can go check that out. I wasn't even sure if I was going to be allowed to go there. I actually asked the dean, like, should I be going to the ceremony or not, because I have like a pending failed grade where like I'm not going to be graduating in May if I failed this class potentially. And he told me since I had a pending grievance that I'd be able to go to the ceremony. So I went, and it was a lovely time. It kind of remotivated me and refocused me on like what my end goal is and like how close I was. So it was a good timing to kind of have that and refocus and just feel motivated to tackle 212 in the following week. So I had that, and then 212 started, so I was still kind of having this pending, unsettled portion of my life in 210 invested, and didn't really know what was going to happen with that. So I ended up having my grievance a couple days into class that following week, and I got my grievance approved and everything. So then I was able to schedule my test, and they scheduled it for the following Saturday. So Saturday morning I went in, I took my test, I got to take it in a room all by myself. And another thing that my doctor was able to do was write me kind of like a letter that I could have testing accommodations at my college. My college offers testing accommodations to anyone who needs them. You just have to have a letter from your doctor. So I was able to get that for any tests that I was going to take in 212. I took my test, my final, over again for 210, 10, which was psych. I took the psych final over again. I got an 80. I was able to say, check, that class is done. It's off my plate. I'm moving on to 212 and I'm feeling good. So I really was. I went on to 212. It was another 6-week course alongside 211, which is lab. We also were in clinical, and I was on a med-surg floor with 2 instructors because we were 2 groups on the same floor, so they were kind of both our instructors that I absolutely loved. They were also teachers in the course, so I was just in love with them. They were the nicest, kindest, caring, like funniest instructors that I ever had, my absolute favorites of all time. And I loved the floor that I was working on. I felt very confident. In lab, we finished up learning things like trach care, IV push, blood draws off of PICCs, CVADs, midlines. We learned all about them. So I got to take care of patients with trach collars and on vents and stuff. So I got 2 patients like that I had to take care of. So I was getting the heaviest of the heavy kind of patients on the med-surg floor, and I was absolutely loving it. Getting to do everything for the patient, literally everything. Some weeks I had 2 patients, some weeks I had 1 patient, and just doing literally total care for the patients that I was assigned. Passing all their meds, doing their bed baths, assessments, documenting I's and O's and daily cares, and literally everything for the patient from about 8 a.m., actually from 7 a.m. until about 2 p.m. when we were off the floor. A lot of times we'd have post-conferences after clinical, which were nice. And the only other like non-testing requirement that we had for this class was a paper and a PowerPoint. I never ever felt like I was failing the course. I felt pretty good about it. I was taking my Lexapro and studying for all the tests like I had been. And I think on my first test I got a 76, and then I got a 78, and then the third test I got a 70. So going into the final, I was like on shaky grounds again. I think actually going into this final, I was in fact failing by just a smidgen, and all I had to do was pass the final and I would pass the course. So I studied so hard, harder than I ever have for any other final, for this final in 212. I literally studied for a week or a week and a half or so, like hardcore studied. I probably overstudied, but I was doing study groups. I was studying with my peers, and it was going so well. I felt so knowledgeable and so prepared. I was gonna like kill it when I went into the test, and I really honestly felt confident. That morning going into the test, I got to go up on the 6th floor and take it in a nice quiet room, just like I had been for the whole semester or the whole course. And my cumulative average for the course ended up being a 74.62. Another mere miss of a passing grade, like less than a half a point again. Devastating, right? So I was actually like out celebrating the time our test grades came out. Me and Courtney and her other friend were out eating lunch, and I was feeling very good about the test. Courtney was freaking out a little bit. I was feeling confident, not overconfident, just like good enough that I passed. Didn't pass. What the heck, guys? What the heck? It's still something that I've been struggling with. Still feels like very fresh in my mind that I failed, even though it's been a little over a month, like a month and a half since I failed. And my peers have all started back up in school for their 4th and final semester, and here is Case, waiting on reinstatement. After I failed 212, I was crushed. I got to go over my test with my instructor, my favorite teacher of all time. I got to sit down with her and go over the test. That was another thing I did to prepare for the finals in 212. You're given the opportunity to go over your tests before the next one happens. I did that for almost all of the tests so that I know what I did wrong and where. So going into the final, I was feeling good because I had done that, and I was like, I'm doing great. Like, this is going to be all good and daisies, but it didn't end up being that way. For whatever reason, I ended up failing. And I have many speculations and things that I've explained away in my head that this is happening for a reason, because that's really what I have to believe at this point based upon, you know, the circumstances and how confident I feel as a student in clinicals and everything. I went over the final with my favorite instructor, and she and I both had a moment. We were both like crying, and she told me I could always come see her whenever I like needed to talk to someone, which is always a nice thing to hear. So we bid our goodbyes, and she kind of gave me some advice on what I should do from here, if I should reinstate, which I absolutely was going to. I was not going to give up on nursing school. So if I should reinstate into the same program that I was already in for the following year, or if I should join up with the evening weekend program. I had it set in my mind that I was going to start as soon as I possibly could with the evening weekend and graduate in December of this year. So I reinstated and wrote my reinstatement letter. My reinstatement letter got approved. I'm going to be reinstated into the evening weekend program starting back up in May of this year. So right now I'm kind of like on pause. They're still allowing me to work as a student nursing assistant at the hospital. That is what I'm doing. I feel super confident in my clinical skills and pretty much my clinical judgment. I feel like I am obtaining so much knowledge working, and some of the speculation I have in my head for the reason why I didn't end up passing the course is, for one, my mom is out of work kind of right now. She just started going back, but she injured her knee, and my tuition comes out of her paycheck. So if she had had my tuition coming out of her non-existent paycheck because she was out of work with an injury, that would have been really bad. So I feel like this kind of gave my mom an opportunity to rest her knee while it was injured, get caught up on her bills and her situation, you know, give other people in my life a break. Even though it's stressful for Brendan and I think me being out of school right now is helping me in other ways. Financially, I'm able to kind of work and pay for my bills so that I don't get behind. Even though being an RN would really help me in a couple months. If I could have been there in July or August of this year, I could have been an RN, but instead it's going to probably be February or March of next year, and I have come to a conclusion that that's okay, and I've accepted it, and I'm trying to move on, and I'm really staying positive. I know quite a few people in the weekend program that I'm entering, so I have already made friends in the program, and of course I still have my amazing friends that I made in school these past 3 semesters, and I will be friends with them for life. I still talk to them like every single day. We still do things together. We are still like all best friends, so I'm not worried about losing my friends. It just sucks not finishing with them. I'm so saddened by it, and there's really nothing else I can do at this point, especially now that we've all moved on, and it is what it is, and the semester started, and they're gonna finish, and I'm gonna finish a little bit later. It's a-okay. Everyone sometimes hits a bump in the road, and it doesn't make you a bad nurse in the long run. It just gives me more experience, more knowledge. Maybe I was meant to do better in school than I have been doing. I have a couple other issues going on right now. I'm going to like have a sleep study done. I may have sleep apnea, which is really affecting like my focus and my energy level, which has a lot to do with school. Like if I don't have energy or focus in school, like how am I ever going to get anything done? So I'm going to try to straighten that out before I get back in school and just go into it with the right mindset and right tools. And also another big thing that will help me as I move forward is the scheduling for the evening weekend program. It will allow me to be able to work more days of the week, which is more settling for my stress level, being able to work and have study time and not have to like juggle it as much. Because with the evening or the day weekday program, I was in school 5 days a week, and with the evening weekend it's 3 days a week, so it's a lot more manageable for me. So with that being said, if you have any questions about nursing school still, please send them my way. If you would like me to make any other specific videos about any aspect of nursing school, please let me know. I also want to point out that there's a couple of things that I've learned from this semester, and the number one thing being you cannot compare yourself to other people. I think that was like the biggest nail in the coffin for me, was like worrying about what everyone else was doing this semester. That really skyrocketed my anxiety and made things a lot worse for me than they should have been. So that is my number one advice. A big lesson that I learned from this semester is you don't worry about what other people are doing. I mean, try to help people if you can and reach out to them. If they need help studying, help them, but don't compare yourself to them. Don't wonder, like, what are they doing to be successful? Because everyone works at a different rate and earns success at a different level and at different times. It just is all a matter of fate and luck and hard work, of course. All of that is a contributing factor to success. So don't compare yourself to others, because they put a different amount of work into where they are compared to you. So you can't say, oh, how did you get there? Like, why am I not as good as you at this thing, but I'm better at you than this thing? Like, just don't compare yourself. I personally, looking at the way that I've gone through school, I'm super strong in clinicals. I can, I'm really good at studying, honest to God. I'm just bad at taking tests. So we're all different types of students. We all have our strong suits and our weak suits. And mine, luckily, is my strong suit is clinical, and my weak suit is testing. And that's okay. I'm going to try my hardest going into the evening weekend program to, one, not compare myself to others, to focus and study on myself and what I'm doing. Again, not worrying about what everyone else is doing, and just try my best and do what I need to do to get through it. And that's okay with me if I just get through it. I don't need to have the best grades in the class or anything like that. I just want to graduate. So yeah, that will pretty much do it for this video. I'm sorry if it was scatterbrained all over the place. I'm sorry if I sound like I don't know what I'm talking about. It's hard for me to remember, especially in the mental state that I was in this past semester, to wrap my head around everything that just happened. It just all flew by this whole semester. So as unfortunate as it is to end that chapter of my nursing school career, I'm super excited to open a new chapter on moving forward and graduating in December. So yeah, thank you guys so much for watching this video. If you made it all the way to the end of the video, leave me a comment saying nurses rock down in the comments. I don't know, that sounds really dumb, but do it. So yeah, leave me a comment down below, give this video a thumbs up if you liked it, and subscribe to my channel for more videos like this from me, and I will see you all on another time. Bye everyone! In my life and in my diet journey, but I got 4 avocados from Aldi's and they were 79 cents each, which is amazing.